one matter in the front burner, and a lot of which Nigerians are really agitated about, is the request by President Muhammadu Buhari on Wednesday to the Senate asking for the approval of $800 million loan to finance the National Social Safety Network program. The request was contained in a letter read by the President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, to lawmakers on the floor of the Senate. The President went further in that letter that the Senate may wish to note that the program is intended to expand coverage of shock-responsive safety net support among the poor and vulnerable Nigerians. This will assist them in coping with the cost of meeting basic needs. Meanwhile, the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, has urged the World Bank President, Mr. David Malpass, to use his good office to suspend any disbursement of the $800 million loan to the federal government and to request the incoming administration to provide satisfactory explanation for the loan. Let's get talking on this one. It seems to have gotten attention of a lot of people, and the issue of the debt burden of the nation has also been brought into the fray. I'm being joined by the Senate spokesperson and the senator representing Osun State in the Senate, a member of the APC, Senator Ajibola Basiru. Thank you so much, Senator, for joining us tonight.
Yeah, good evening, Sean.
Yeah. We'll be getting some economic perspectives also on this. Mr. Kyari Abuka, who is a former chairman of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, he joins us virtually. Thank you so much, Mr. Abuka. It's good to see you, and thanks so much indeed for creating time for us and give perspectives on the President's request and other issues. But, Senator, let's begin the conversation, sir. This request is gotten a lot of Nigerians agitated. Would the Senate approve or not?
I don't have power of clairvoyance, and my calling is law, not prophecy. So I wouldn't know what the attitude of the Senate Assembly to the request. As you have said, the request was made available on Wednesday, and of course, as is characteristic of the Nigerian Senate, the request will be sent to relevant committee of the Senate for consideration, and there will be interface with the relevant agencies of the executive to be able to get proper briefing and, of course, rationale, justification, and will also be examined in the context of the debt sustainability requirement under the Fiscal Responsibility Act. So I cannot this evening say whether it will be approved or whether it will not be approved. And in any event, I'm one senator out of 109 senators that would be considering the proposition. So at the best, I can only hazard a guess of what will be my personal disposition, assuming I have all the facts as to what impel the requirement for that loan.
The footnote to this, everyone, is that we're speaking with Senator Basiru because he's speaking on behalf of the Senate as an institution and on behalf of the 109 senators elected into the red chamber. So when we are asking you these questions, we're asking you, hoping that you have all of the information for Nigerians because you are serving them and you have been elected to represent your people. So in that respect, we are hoping that we might get some knowledge from the activities of your colleagues. So that's why I asked the question.
Of course,
and in that respect, one wonders that it's just about 20 days or less for this government to move to exit, and perhaps are the senators also wondering why this kind of request is coming at this time in the day?
Sean, just as you have said, a letter was written by President to the Senate on Wednesday. And Wednesday, if you check, that was the last plenary day for the week. And the content of the letter was read at the plenary. So the question of what I'm saying is that I'm not in a position to tell you what will be the disposition of the Senate. And characteristically, what the Senate will do will be to send the request when it comes up for second reading, I think by the next legislative day, to the relevant committee of the National Assembly, and then there will be interface with the executive arm. And now talking about whether it is 20 days or 1 day that remains, I think that is a moot question. At the life of an administration, when a person is sworn in to be president, is sworn in to be president for 4 years, and that 4 years elapsed on the eve of the night of 29th of May 29, 2023. So he has all the power of the executive, which is not going to be in abeyance just because there's an election or that there is a transition. Also, the life of this 9th Assembly will expire on 11th of June 2023. So the question of whether it is 20 days, 5 days, or 12 hours that remain begs the question. So what I'm saying in essence is that rather than subject, ourselves, to constraints of, commentators who may also not be informed of what, the executive, was thinking, we will look at the request, and of course, we're going to subject it to scrutiny, and we're going to ask the relevant agencies to provide justification. I'm not oblivious of the fact that there have been a lot of commentary, on both for and against the loan request. But we cannot base our position and what eventually will be the position of the Nigerian Senate on individual opinion, but on a critical evaluation of the papers by which the loan request is being
Senator, if I may jump in quickly, because and I guess this should worry you though, because you are a representative of the people, and the kind of suspicion and distrust that is in the minds of some Nigerians about the activities of you and your colleagues in the manner in which you dispense your role as lawmakers. For example, when the Ways and Means approval came over the securitization of about 22.7 trillion of the CBN Ways and Means to the federal government, there are a lot of people who worry at the time that are the senators aware of the enormous debt burden that this country will be plunged into? The DMO at the time warned that that will have taken or projected Nigerians' debt burden to about 77 trillion naira. Does that worry you, Senator? And perhaps the reason why there is suspicion and distrust?
It's not easy when you talk about government. Naturally, there's always atmosphere of suspicion against any government in the world, even the government of the advanced democracy and advanced economy. In fact, it's usually like the government and the people on their hand. But the question is that you must have a holistic perspective of the decision you are taking. Let's look at the different scenario we have, particularly in relation to the question of the Ways and Means. These Ways and Means, assuming the National Assembly turn down that Ways and Means, what will be the implication on the economy of the country, assuming that request was turned down? It's just like the argument presently in the United States about raising the debt ceiling and a failure to do so. What effect will it be? I'm cognizant of the fact that there are a lot of concerns about the 77 trillion debt that is being said about Nigeria. But the question you ask yourself is that this loan, what are they being used for? And whether when those are being used for, are they not being seen in terms of manifestation in infrastructure development? Part of this loan, because it's easy to just say 77 trillion naira, you also know that the Idu to Kaduna Railway is part of what this loan was part of. The Lagos-Ibadan Railway project is also part of it. The second Niger Bridge is also part of what this loan. Then the hydro power electricity project is also part of what this has gone to, as well as some other critical infrastructure that have been developed under the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. So you cannot just talk of loan and figure in that solution. You must talk in the context of whether those loans are being used for what manifestly can be seen and what manifestly in the long run can translate to some form of economic advancement in the near future for our country. That is the consideration. It's not just enough to make banalistic political statements. I said, hey, 77 trillion has gone. What has this loan been used for, and what will be the practical manifestation in terms of real economy? Of course, any government must be ready to be alive to criticism, must be alive to also some people who don't see it the way it has been. But I would say that rather than just look at figures, we must also look at manifestations in real terms of what has been done in terms of real infrastructure development of our society, in terms of road infrastructure, real infrastructure, development of our aviation sector, as well as some other sector of our economy.
Senator, if you and I get into the debate of the reason and the rationale between, of your colleagues approving some of these debt who might not get out of here, but let me bring in Mr. Karibuka, because if you look at what Mr. Ben Akabo is, the Director General of the Budget Office, a government official has said that our revenue is too small to sustain our debt, and perhaps what the senator is saying tonight might also raise a question mark mark and the reason why the senators are going about it the way they have gone about it. But Mr. Booker, give us a sense, because this we understand the $800 million loan request is supposed to help to service to buffer the effect of the fuel subsidy. But this is where we find ourselves. Any danger in the works over these requests?
Thank you, Sean. The $800 million may not be the thing that is going to tip us over the hump, so to speak. However, we have been heavily indebted as a nation. I know that most people will quote the debt sustainability as an issue, meaning that our total debt is around 35 or thereabout % of our GDP. Now, the area of concern is not that of debt as a % of GDP, but debt as a % of revenues. In that case, at the center, the federal government is heavily indebted. No matter what the senator says, the fact of the matter is that a big portion of the revenues generated by the country goes for debt servicing. When you combine both the domestic and the foreign debt, it amounts to somewhere in the neighborhood of 76 to 77 trillion naira. Now, sorry, some people are talking. I'm getting interference. What we have here is also a situation of decorum. Protocol necessitates, yes, the fact of the matter is that this administration is still in power until the 29th of May, and therefore it can do whatever is necessary to fix the economy. Now, this is the same administration that has borrowed over $21 billion in the last 8 years. Therefore, if it is just borrowing, that's one matter, but it is borrowing for some purpose. And what has happened is that in those 8 years, the average living standard of the average Nigerian citizen, discounting people in high places, has gone down drastically. Look at our GDP per capita. It has been going down south since the beginning of this administration. Therefore, just loading debt without the effect of that debt going into the right social infrastructure will be a problem. Giving cash to people may, on the surface of it, be a good thing to do. Why shouldn't we borrow domestically to do that if that's the case? So the question goes, it's not just the fact of the matter is, it's not just borrowing to subsidize, to remove the effect of the subsidy removal on the average person. There are some structural issues that need to be fixed. The transport sector, food and food-derived inflation, all of those are going to go up as soon as the subsidy is removed. Now, what will $800 million do? And how many people are going to be beneficiaries of that $800 million? So I think when one looks at it, there should be some fundamental questions that the senators need to ask of the presidency and come up with a more comprehensive solution than this 6 months buying of time, at which time we may actually see worse than expected outcome, because inflation will continue to rise from where we are around 24-25% to somewhere in the neighborhood of 30%. And as soon as we go into a hyperinflationary economy, most other things will go to the dogs as far as the economy is concerned. So we need to look at it in a very critical manner. But again, yes, the administration can do this. However, the incoming administration will be saddled with the cleaning up of a mess if there were going to be a mess. And so goes to the Senate as well.
Mr. Booker, let me quickly jump in and let's stay on the on what the purpose, which you highlighted. I mean, looking at what that 800 million US dollar is going to be used for. And the loan is to be disbursed to about progressively to about 50 to 60 million vulnerable Nigerians in about 10 million households as part of the fuel subsidy palliative measure to buffer what could be the pressure and the shock from that policy. And the project aims to provide cash transfers to poor and vulnerable people in both rural and urban areas in Nigeria in response to the economic shocks for at least 2 years. But the question is, politically speaking, this might sound somehow, economic speaking, is it reasonable? And you look at it that how transparent has this social welfare scheme of the Buhari government over the last 7 years has been, as really the poor people in Nigeria they've been benefiting from this scheme? Does it look like a scam or something? About 23 million US dollar out of that money will be spent on consultancy fees alone.
Exactly. In fact, when you look at something like this, you begin to question whether it is going to the intended people or not. There has been a lot of anecdotal information out there in being discussed that in certain parts of the country, even the people that are supposed to be in the different agencies of government disbursing these monies are basically making up the individuals. Of course, if it were to be truly digitally disbursed and using BVNs or the likes, then it would be traceable. And I hope and pray that that's what the case is going to be. If, on the other hand, it is done a la some of the things that we have seen where people were handed over cash, then traceability becomes an issue. So whether $23 million, which would amount to about 5%, well, maybe 2.5% of the total amount of $800 million goes to consultancy or infrastructure or whatever. What is absolutely critical is that 10.5 million people stated in the slide that you show, is too small in a country where we have about 100 million multidimensional poverty, and 5,000 naira per month to those individuals. Yeah, it can assist them in probably providing food or but it's not going to be enough for them to actually have, something tangible to put into so that they become independent down the road. So essentially, we're just cleaning up the deck of the Titanic, if I can use a cliche. The ship is sinking. And meanwhile, we are cleaning up the floor.
Yeah, from your own standpoint, how best would you, are you thinking Nigeria or the government of the day would have handled this matter? We are knocked between very tough walls and between the sea and the devil, and where we jump into is a tough one to decide. Apparently, even this is approved by the Senate, the money might not likely be disbursed before they get out of office. But the question is, politically speaking, how best do you think we could have handled this?
Politically speaking, there are many easier ways of doing this. By easier, I mean removing fuel subsidy for a country that is drunk with petroleum is going to be difficult. However, during the initial days of the Buhari administration, when there has been a honeymoon and euphoria, a lot of economists had, and even bodies have recommended removal of the subsidy. And one of those suggested modes, which I also endorsed at that time, was to raise the PMS price on an annual basis, say 10% per year, until such a time that it becomes normalized, meaning it is at the market rate, in which case government should remove its hands from this business of importing of refined petroleum products and make it standardized. Once you meet the standards, import it, and that way set your own price, by which time the market would have adjusted gradually. I mean, it is they're not going to be the parable of the boiled frog. It will be, gradual increase, in which case the economy itself will adjust fairly well to the impending moves. And once that has been achieved, then we are going to be in a better position.
Let me return to Senator Ajibala. With all of these, Senator, if you look at it, before the government, Buhari government, one government that I know that you were very vocal about bringing into, you were one of those who were in the front line preaching change. Before that government came into power in 2015, Senator, the debt profile of this country was about 12 trillion naira and is rising to about 7 trillion. I mean, how do we get out of here?
I think you see, you are getting your premise is even very wrong. You don't make comparison in terms of money, in terms of dimension. There's time value of money. There's a time dimension. 12 billion, the value of 12 billion in 2015 is not the same as the value of 12 billion in 2023. Certainly, if you, know economics. So you have to know what is the real value of that 12 billion you are talking about and the real value of what you have now. Then two, I've also told you, and the fact speaks to itself, this loan, he has spoken about social infrastructure, need to invest in social infrastructure. The question you should be asked is that with your figure you have mentioned in 2015 and the figure you have mentioned in 2023, what has not changed in terms of real investment in social infrastructure? Are you saying that the Idu-Kaduna Railway was there completed in 2015? Are you saying that the Lagos-Ibadan Railway was there? Are you talking about Second Eda Bridge? Are you talking about hydropower project? Are you talking about many other, road intervention? And of course, the tax incentives that have been given, to a private, sector. So we cannot, pigeonhole assessment of the government by just picking one figure from 2015 and juxtapose with the figure.
I assume that all of this that you're mentioning is supposed to affect and impact the economy generally, isn't it?
Of course, you also know. Let me tell you, you also know. I know. I'm watching keenly. What is happening in Turkey, in Istanbul now. There's an election that is going. Economy is actually a major factor, even in the Istanbul election. I just came back from Istanbul on Wednesday. In the UK, economy is a major issue. United States economy is a major issue. What has happened between 2015 and now, particularly what has happened to global economy since the pandemic, that cannot be the countenance in discussing what has happened to the economy of any part of the world.
So, Senator, what I was going to draw your attention to is that all of these things that you said, that this administration has borrowed money to service, are supposed to impact generally on the economy.
Of course.
And there's supposed to be some results.
And some also have a futuristic perspective of what effect will be.
The indices released by this same government is in the negative. On the economy, the inflationary effect of inflation is higher. Unemployment is in over 33%.
Challenges of economy is always coming, and of course you face the challenge. If we want to paper off those challenges, of course those challenges will not even be highlighted by official statistician of government. But the truth is that you must be able to confront challenges you have. You cannot. You see, it's easy when you are not in government. You can fold your hands and be an abstract critic and come up with different scenarios. As government, both at the legislative and legislative arm, we have to face a real situation. We have problem of poverty. We have problem of unemployment. We have challenges, of productive activities.
But you saw all of this when you promised Nigerians, of course, we are still heaven on earth.
That's why Nigerians still voted for our party. Ahead of another transition. We still won another election.
In fact, promise, you know what some of your party members promised about the parity between the dollar and the naira, but we know what it is right now.
We won the election in 2023 February.
But so does it take away the fact that
we still have a mandate? So
the economy is going to be left in a bad form.
The economy is challenged, just like every other economy in the world is challenged. It's not a peculiar problem of Nigeria. You cannot make it a
and the fact that the question mark on the duties of you and your colleagues in the right chamber is that what was it that you were looking
just like we got mandate
us of all of these debts up to this point.
So we got mandate in 2015, we got mandate in 2019, we still got pan-Nigerian mandate in 2023. And beyond that, we still are honest to be able to point out inadequacies and challenges that we are facing, and we will continue to do so. And when people talk about a cutoff date of President Muhammadu Buhari administration, May 29, our party, by the grace of God and by the election we have won, we are going to be beyond 23 in government. And of course, we're going to tackle these challenges. We're going to address some of the issues that have led us to this place. Politically, the question of subsidy, which has been raised, of course, the president, elect, has stated categorically, even in election, even at the pain of possibly, not getting necessary, political mileage, has stated his position as to the fact that we can not continue to do things, particularly in that regard, as it were.
Senator Ajibala Basiru, the spokesperson of the Senate and a member of the National Assembly representing Osun State, a member of the APC. Thanks so much indeed for your time tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me here.
Mr. Kyari Buka, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for your intervention and the perspective that you're giving on this matter. I guess it's a conversation that will be ongoing as long as this issue of the request is still lying in front of the Red Chamber. Thank you so much indeed, Mr. Buka.
Thank you, Sharon.
Appreciate it.